Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me in this presentation. My name is Pär, and I work for a Swedish company called J-Way. And feel free to follow me on Twitter if you like. I mostly retweet funny videos and cats. So today I'm going to take you on a journey into a somewhat unusual topic of biohacking. And when I was a kid, my mom used to say that I was special. I quickly realized that I wasn't special at all. I was just special to her. A few years later, I attended high school, and my teachers used to say that I was special. I wasn't special at all. I was just the average, obnoxious, stupid teenager running around in the corridor making mischief. Now, at the age of 40, I can for the first time ever say that I'm special, or at least a bit unique. And what makes me unique is this chip that I have implanted in my hand. This is the same kind of what I want you to remember what I'm about to I want you to forget what I'm about to say now. But this is the same kind of chip that you implant in pets. So forget about that. So if you were all cats or dogs, I wouldn't be special or unique. So stay human. It's 12 millimeters long and 2 millimeters wide. And you can't see it from a few meters away. But if you get up close, you will see it's like a cylinder or a rod protruding from my hand. So it's clearly visible when you look at it. And you can come down afterwards if you want to feel it, to just look at it, or if you want to try it with your phone. So I can move it. So I can move it about a centimeter in my hand. And this chip is supposed to be in the crevice between the thumb and the finger. Now, I've been wearing it for about a year, and it's slowly been moving. And it's a bit misplaced now. I would prefer to have it here, because it's more convenient. So the question is, how did this end up in my hand? And about a year ago, I attended a conference where biohacking was in the limelight. They offered workshops, they offered sessions, and they even offered free chip implants for all attendees. And I felt the urge to become a cyborg, or at least push the boundaries for technology. So I thought, I'm going to do this. So I spent an hour reading up on the subject. It's still an alien life form in my hand, and I want to know what that means. So I read up on it, and I understood that this is, in this case, it's not dangerous at all. So this presentation is going to be a journey where we start out with, discussing the thing in my hand, and then we're going to expand the view, looking at use cases where we can use the chip, and then we're going to go further into the future, and we're going to discuss what could be possible if we expand this. So I'm really excited and intrigued by this technology. The things we can do with this today and especially in the future are going to be awesome. But at the same time, at the end of the presentation, what I'm about to show you, it makes me feel, from a privacy and security and integrity perspective, it makes me feel scared. And I hope you will too. So the thing is that I'm just going to, I've been doing a lot of research on this topic, and I'm just going to present it to you. I'm not going to be an opponent nor a proponent. You will just have to make up your mind if you think this is a good idea. And as I said, I did a lot of research before I took the chip, before I underwent the procedure. But I still want to make sure that this was okay, so I called my wife. And I said, hey, I'm on this conference, and they're offering free chip implants, and I'm thinking about taking one. What do you think? And my wife, being in the pharmaceutical industry, she has a different view of this. So her response, that is the stupidest idea you've ever come up with. And the thing is, my point here is, I think we're both right. From her perspective, I think this is stupid. But being interested in technology and wanting to push the boundaries, it makes sense to me. So you will have to make the same call and see what response you get. Here's a picture of the 64 people accepting chips that very day. And it happened to be 64 implants that day because that was all the time the implant guy had. So he worked for a full day and he did 64 of them. It's so doing this procedure is, it takes a little bit of time, but it's mostly talking to him and him instructing me what to do. So from the 64 that I know and the rest of my colleagues or friends that undergone this procedure, only one have chosen to remove the chip. And in his case, his chip was moving just like mine. And he's doing a lot of heavy lifting, which I'm not doing. And his chip was scratching the bone. And that's not a pleasant experience. So he went to the doctor and he had it cut out. Other than that, I haven't heard of a single person, well, we're going to get to that, but a single person wearing a chip like this with some kind of bad experience. So what is biohacking? Well, it's biology and it's hacking. And biology, like the study of everything that's living, And biohacking contains two subgroups. It's do-it-yourself biology, which is typically just, you take the kind of labs you have in institution and in companies, and you bring that to your home. So it's do-it-yourself at home biology. We're not going to look into this. It's been around for a long time. You can read up on it. We're going to look into the grinders. And I'm typically a grinder. Grinders are people inserting things in our bodies, typically chip implants. That's what we're gonna look into. So how do you get a chip if you're interested? There are two ways. You can, in Sweden, we have a growing community, and there's a lot of biohacking going on there. And the community is offering chip implant parties in different cities. So they announced a chip implant party, and you can just go there and get a chip implant. The cost for this is around somewhere between 100 and 200 euros. The second option is to buy this implant kit, and you can buy them at dangerousthings.com. I'm not sure why they chose that URL, but they sell things that are related to biohacking. So if you buy this, you will get a box like this containing everything you need. So there is syringe, it's an NFC chip, there is sterilization pouch, adhesive bandage, and everything you need except someone doing the procedure. So when you get this, don't do it yourself. I would suggest you go to someone who knows how to do it. And that's typically a body modification artist, piercer. You could try to go to a doctor, but they will refuse you because this is typically not legal. They will lose the license. And there are, in the United States, there are states where biohacking is forbidden. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I guess so. But I told you to forget about it, right? No more questions like that. But you can, you can go to vet. So it contains everything you need. Don't go to a doctor. Go to someone who knows this. Okay, don't do it yourself. There are two kinds of chip you can insert. There is the older RFID technology that you can insert in your hand, and it's typically used for entrance systems. So if you want to gain access to your office but just swiping your hand, this is the chip for you. And then you have the NFC, and that's what I'm wearing, and that's typically used for smart cards. So if you're going to go to the subway system or you want to go to a bus, they typically use smart cards. At the conference, there was one person who couldn't decide, so he chose both. So two chips, one in each hand. And I wouldn't mind, I think that NFC is a bit more future-proof, but in hindsight, I think that RFID would have suited me better, because what I want to do is just gain access to the entrance of my office. And I can store about almost a kilobyte of data on my chip. And that's enough for the use cases I'm going to present. It's passive. This is just a chip implant. It's just an NFC that is inside a metallic tube or a glass tube. So I could just as well just put a sticker on my hand with an NFC tag. Except that one would probably go off in the shower. I used a tool called NFC Tools to read and write, and you can use that for NFC stickers just as well. And one nifty feature is the task tab. So I can program a task, which just means that my mobile phone will identify the ID and it will do a task for me. So I can just swipe my phone to put it into airplane mode or play a video or music or whatever I want to do. I've chosen to write my business card. So if you come down afterwards and you swipe my tag, you will get my business card on your phone. So what else can we do? So I have my business card and I can put my phone in flight mode. But there are other use cases that I think make more sense. So I've divided the presentation into two parts. The first one is when we look at use cases today, what we can do today. And then we're going to go into the future and just speculate what this will mean for us. And tomorrow means in perhaps 5 years, 50 years, or even 100 years. So the time scale is a bit blurry there. So the near future. One thing you can do is, if you have an Android phone, there is a feature called Smart Lock. And if you look at the middle screen, I have 3 trusted devices that I can unlock my phone with. It's a Volvo, it's a Kia, and it's a device called My Hand. And My Hand is obviously my hand. So I can just swipe my hand to unlock my phone. And that goes for a computer if it's NFC enabled as well. This is my friend. He's a leading biohacker in Stockholm and one of the persons organizing biohacking implants parties. And this is him getting to work. He looks happy. And he just swipes his hand and is in. That's how it works. It's very convenient. You can also use your hand to open other kinds of lock. So on the right side is just a generic lock that you can use when you go to the gym, you want to lock your bike or whatever you want to do. On the left side is a more advanced lock that you can put in your home. So you can replace your home lock and you can throw away your keys. And you can gain access by just swiping your hand and get in. Yeah, no, it's NFC. And I haven't talked to my wife about this, but we don't have it. And let's leave it at that. And this is another guy, he's called Andreas Sjöström, I think he's based in Stockholm. And he's been collaborating with Scandinavian Airline Systems. And together they come up with a proof of concept. And the goal was to embark on aircraft using nothing but his hand. So he got to the airport, and whenever they asked for his boarding card, he just swiped his hand. I should say that this is a proof of concept. It's not available. You can't go to SAS and ask them to write your hand. I mean, that's not going to happen. I'm not sure. I don't think they're working on this. It's just a proof of concept, but it works. And this might be a part of the future. They've done the same in the subway system in Stockholm. And, collaborating with them, and a few of the biohackers were able to get access to the tube using only their hands. Apparently, the subway system would have to replace their existing mechanism for gaining access. And that would cost a lot of money. So this is not something that's going to happen in a year or two. But it works. Another use case is payment. This is Patrick, who teamed up with one of his friends, and they wrote some custom hardware and some custom software, and they put that together with a Bitcoin client. And he was able to successfully transfer and pay money, Bitcoin, by just swiping his hands. And you might think that, okay, but he's at a computer, it's a lot of custom software and hardware, it's really not that useful. But if you think about this in the future, what we can do with it, what if we get chips with connectivity that is working over like a few meters? Maybe we don't have to do anything. We can just pass it through. So I think we're getting there. From now on, for every new slide, we're gonna step it up another level, and it gets more and more dangerous. So now we're gonna leave the chip implants, and we're gonna see what else we can do with biohacking. This is Gabriel. He wanted to achieve night vision. So they dripped a substance, a cellulose-like substance, into his eyes. And it was onto his eye bulbs. And then he waited until it was absorbed by the eye. And then he waited for another 2 hours. And then he went outside in the night. And he was asked to pick out 50 subjects hiding in the neighborhood. And they were standing somewhere between 25 and 50 meters away from him. And he could pick out every single one of them, compared to a test group, a normal test group that can only pick up 1/3 of them. So he successfully achieved night vision. If you're interested, he reported that 20 years after the procedure, his eyes were back to normal, and he didn't experience any kind of anything that was unusual after 20 days. So he went back to normal. People are inserting magnets into the fingertips, strong magnets. And I'm not sure if this is a good thing or not. I wouldn't do it, because there's not a proper use case for this yet. But I've read 2 stories about this. One person walking around in New York City, when he finally, he just stops, because there's a tingling sensation in his fingers. And apparently he had just crossed either some kind of subway junction or some kind of electric junction with strong currents. And his fingers was picking that up. So if you're working with electricity, this might be a good thing, might be a use case in the future. Another person who was studying geology wrote about this, and he was going to an excursion in Tanzania, and he said that he was able to approximate the amount of iron in the soil by just running his finger and see how much he could pick up. And by doing that, he found new places where they didn't look for it otherwise. So again, a bit far-fetched, but it might be something. Echolocation. It's the sound system that bats and dolphins use to navigate. So they send out a sound, and that gets reflected. And when they get that in return, they're able to see where the objects are, or hear where the objects are. So where they are and where they're moving. And this is a biohacker called Rich Lee, and he's going blind. So one of his eyes already blind, and he's quickly getting blind on the other eye as well. And he want to create some kind of echolocation by doing biohacking. So on the left side, you will see a protrusion next to his ear, and that's magnets, strong magnets. And he figure he can have this ultrasonic sensor. He can walk around with that will send out ultrasonic sound that gets bounced on objects and returned, just like bats and dolphins. Then that device is going to produce a current that it feeds into the cord, starting with a 3.5 millimeter jack on the top right side. And that current is going to go to the transmitter where it's amplified, hence the battery. And then it's going to continue into the coil, and that's copper wire. So what happens with current going into a coil like that, and he's wearing that as a necklace? Well, it will produce an electromagnetic field that will affect the magnets. So basically the sound he gets will be transported, and it will resonate according to the sound. So his magnets will push on his inner ear, just like a sound wave would. So when he goes blind, he can just walk around with this, not visible at all, and just hear the surrounding. Now, if you're clever, you might think couldn't he just use headphones? I mean, he just, skip the magnets and just put on headphones and he can listen to the sounds. But being a biohacker, how much fun would that be? So this is where we leave the sound, the safeguard, and we go into some stuff that I wouldn't do. Here's a biohacker who got tired of waiting for, he got tired of wearing these earpieces, Bluetooth earpieces, to communicate with his phone. They're getting smaller, but they're still clumsy. It's still, a piece of something in your ear. And some of them look terrible. So he bought the smallest earpiece he could find with Bluetooth connectivity. And he hooked it up, doing some soldering with a bone conductor. And what you see the coin there, it's a quarter, and you see the size of it. Now he's probably gonna fold this, and he's gonna coat it in something that is biosafe, and he's gonna implant it into his ears, just next to his ear. So he will get the same kind of earpiece that you're wearing, but implanted in his ear. By the size of it, it's gonna hurt. And by the size of it, it's probably gonna be more obvious than an earpiece. But it's for science, right? There are two things to note here. There is a microphone in there, and he figures the skin is so thin that it will still work. So he will be able to pick up a call without wearing anything. He can just walk around in the city talking to someone on the phone. And he could even set the alarm, and when it goes off 6 in the morning, no one but him will hear it. The last thing to notice here is there is a battery. I don't know if you read about the Samsung, the explosions and the burning. That's where this gets scary. And I've written on his blog that he says that I'm going to be the tester for this. Don't do this. I'll do it, and I'll tell you how it works. And this is, I think he picked up the battery is something he found in a toothbrush. So I don't know how he's going to charge this. Is he going to go around with like a charger? I don't know. So this is, I wouldn't do it. It's very far off. But again, it's biohacking, and people are doing this. So are you scared yet? Would you do this? No, it's good. Everyone would do this. Good. So the next one, would you do this? I hear yes. This is a biohacker who's a bit frustrated because the human evolution is not going quick enough. It takes time. I don't know if you noticed, but we're still pretty primitive. So he's working with a biohacking company, and they've developed this device called the Cicada. And it basically picks up his temperature and blood pressure, and it gets transferred to his phone. And in the case with the temperature, the phone will transmit the information to the thermostat in his home that will control the heating in the different rooms depending on his body temperature. That's one of the goals. The other goal is to send an alarm whenever the device thinks that he's getting a fever. So think about that. What if this device was smaller than my implant? Because we're going there. It's just a matter of time. Doesn't this make sense? To measure body temperature, maybe blood sugar, everything we can measure in the body, and we can send that to our doctor. So before it gets critical, we can take action. It's just a matter of making this like 1,000 times smaller. This, by the way, is the size of a pack of cards. A pack of cards. And he didn't use anesthetic. So he said when he got back, I read the interview, there's a video of this, you can just Google it, this is the first hit. He said that not using anesthetic, afterwards, the body reacts as if he was being stabbed several times. So he was going down, the body wasn't really working, he was really tired. Another thing that I've been thinking about, and he didn't say anything about it, is this is an American, and the implant, the procedure was done in Europe. And I don't know how he got back home. How do you pass security? In this case, it's not a problem. I'm here. I'm from Sweden. I passed. I've been to the States as well wearing this. I mean, it's nothing. But this one is not going to pass. I don't think so. Again, it's big. It's huge. And there's even a lamp blinking when it's on. Don't mind the tattoo. It's not part of the... It was there before the... I hope it was there before the implant. The device was designed to work for, I think it was 190 days. The battery was designed to work for that long. There's a battery. He took it out after 94 days. And the reason for that was two things. First, he ran out of battery. Secondly, and this is important, he was getting anxiety attacks. And it was probably, connected to the device somehow. So he felt very uncomfortable wearing it. But they're working on a new release of this, where they're going to pick up temperature, they're going to pick up blood pressure, and even the blood sugar as well. So they're doing this, they're doing this research, and once this gets smaller, it's going to work. Next up is here's a guy who's suffering from cluster headaches, chronic cluster headaches, and you don't want to have that. It's really bad. So he's implanted a neurostimulator that can stimulate his brain, and it's controlled by a handheld remote. So whenever he's getting hit by these cluster headaches, he can just push a button to stimulate the brain. And this is, I'm not sure if this is really biohacking. I think this has actually been approved by some kind of authority. But it's still very interesting. Like the previous use case, he also had it removed because he was, again, suffering from anxiety and panic attacks. And he had this thought that he was going to hurt the chip inside of him somehow. That was a very weird feeling inside. So there's some kind of alien thing in his head, and he want to hurt it. Who wouldn't? So this is my favorite use case, is prosthetics for a brain. So if you're out biking and you fall, you can hit your head, and you will having a hard time remembering. Or you can be getting some kind of a disease like Alzheimer's. And the way the brain works is you have one part that is responsible for short-term memory, and you have one part that is responsible for long-term memory. And in between is the hippocampus. And when the hippocampus is injured, you will have a hard time remembering things. So there is an LA-based company called Kernel. They have been spending a lot of time and money researching the patterns being communicated by the hippocampus. And they've successfully mapped the patterns being sent back and forward. So they've created this little computer that you can put in your brain that will help the hippocampus and augment it. And this is, okay, so what do you think? Is this sci-fi? Is this some weird guy sitting in his basement just hacking? No, this is a huge company investing millions of dollars. And this specific device is currently in FDA trials in the States. And as soon as this passes, it will be available, and doctors are going to be inserting this into brains. And as a side effect, if we look into the future, I mean, what if this is available to patients with Alzheimer's and head injuries? What's from stopping us into inserting it into our brain? So maybe we can have, maybe in the future, we won't be able to forget anything. That's kind of scary. There are certain things in my life I want to forget. But maybe we can have some kind of filter. But anyway, this is coming. And this is one of the, again, it's a scary thing. Because, okay, the intention from the beginning is really good. But when this is acceptable, what are we going to do with it? I mean, knowing human beings, I know that we're never going to stop and be satisfied. We always have to go one step further, even if it means chaos and destruction. So if we have the possibility, we will fuck it up. Bionic eyes. So scientists have successfully been able to reverse engineer the operations of the retina in your eye. And they've been building a computer that can recreate the same pattern. And they're hooking up this computer to the optic nerve in your brain. That means that you can, if you're blind, you can put a camera where the eye should be, and you can feed your brain with images from the real world. And again, this makes a lot of sense if you're blind. I mean, I wouldn't mind doing this if it's safe. And again, this is actually in FDA trials, so we're coming there. It's going to happen. And I know there are 2 groups working on this, and one of them are in FDA trials. And imagine what we can do once this passes. I mean, what can we do with it? Well, I'm thinking optical zoom. I mean, what if, the camera could be so much better than the eyes we're wearing. Night vision, no problem at all. We will be able to see parts of the spectrum that we can't see today. And maybe with using the previous example, we can just store it to memory. We don't have to forget everything. This is Professor Warwick. He's been doing biohacking for a very long time. And what you see on this picture is his hand. And he's made a procedure where he's opened up his, I think it's just beneath his elbow. And he inserted a mesh of interceptors, intercepting the signals going back and forward to his hand. And then he hooked that up with a computer that communicated with the robotic arm that you see, the robotic hand. And he was able to move his hand, and the robotic arm hand did the same, like this. So if you were a professor and you did this, would you be satisfied? Well, I would say, yeah, this is pretty cool. But he was like, nah, this is not good enough. So he asked his wife to do the same procedure. And they hooked his hand up with her hand. And so it's not like her hand is moving just because his hand is moving. We're not there yet. We have to do a little bit more research. But he said that he got a tingling sensation whenever she was moving her hand. So the communication works. And I guess this is going to happen. We're getting there. But I have to say that I feel very comfortable just wearing this animal chip implant. It's enough for me. So if we want to continue doing this, what are the challenges? What do we have to solve to make this viable for everyone? And there are a couple of things that comes to mind. The first one is battery. I mean, we can't walk around with batteries. I don't think that's a good idea at all. So we have to come up with some kind of energy harvesting technology that we can use. And what comes to mind is just body temperature. Maybe we can convert that into energy. That's one way we could do it. And it's just a matter of time until we get this right. Then we need some kind of connectivity. So everything we pick up in the body needs to be communicated to the outside world. And we need something else than NFC. We need something that is, that can really communicate to the outside world. We need to make it active. So NFC is passive. It doesn't really mean anything to us. But if we can make this active, then we can download software. Scary. Maybe we can go to, say, a Play Store, and we can just find this incredible app that works for my body. Mine is, I think I have a Lollipop or some upgrade. And I think that, I can just download it, and it will be deployed to my, and I say this is multiple implants, because I'm not going to be satisfied with one. I'm going to have several of these. And it will just be downloaded, and they will work like an app do on the phone, collecting data, doing computations, sending the result to the outside world. We also need to make sure that it's stationary. Mine is moving, and this is pretty big, 12 centimeters times 2 millimeters. It's big, but they're getting smaller. And we need to make sure that it's stationary, because I'm not going to insert hundreds of these, and they accidentally end up in my bloodstream and it ends up in my heart. That's not going to happen. So we need to make them stationary. And then we need to be really, really small. So I'm not talking about, maybe I'm talking about like a grain of sand. That's the size we need. And looking at the history, we're getting there. I mean, do you remember the computers in the 70s? We're getting there. So what if we had all that? So I want you to assume that we have it. What can we do with it? To answer that question, so we're going to go into the tomorrow part now. This is where I speculate. And to answer that question, we need to understand why biohackers do the things they do. Is it just for fun? Is it to impress people? Well, the cost is high, so I don't think so. There is a reason we do this. And I'm going to explain this using your terminology and using Git. So this is the human release branch. We started out, depending on your religious belief, a certain amount of years ago. I'm going to say a couple of million years ago. And that was the 0 to 1 release. It's hundreds of meters to the left. And then we waited a million years, and basically nothing happened. And now we had the 0.7 release, that was maybe a million years ago, and we waited, and we're currently at the 0.9 release. And we're waiting for the 1.0 release, and nothing is happening. And what I mean by that we're currently at the 0.9, and we're having diseases. We're having Alzheimer's, we have cancer. And somehow I think that evolution is going to fix this if we just wait another 2 million years. And biohackers are the ones who can't wait. We want to fix this. We don't want to open doors. We want to fix the problems that we see in our bodies. Many of us do. So the suggestion is that we just branch out and we do a 2.0 release. And we just, we fix a few bugs like cancer, Alzheimer's, degenerative diseases, whatever you can think of. I mean, this is dangerous and this is kind of a joke, but you get it. This is what we want to do. And we can just, we don't have to go back to the human release branch. We can just continue forever. So basically, what we want to do is we want long lives, we want long and comfortable lives, and we want to be intelligent. I mean, that's all we're asking for. So it's well-being, longevity, and intelligence. That's what many biohackers strive for. And I'm going to go through some of the use cases that we will see once we reach the goal. The first one is well-being, and it's combined with well-being. It's longevity and it's well-being. So imagine yourself in the future. You're getting old. You have grandkids. And one of your grandkids just became a parent. I mean, literally just, like in a few seconds ago. They're in the hospital, and the doctor's picking up the baby. And they usually count the toes and the fingers. They make sure the breathing and the heartbeat is as expected. That's what we do today. Then I imagine the doctor leaning over to the parents saying, do you want the normal upgrade? And the parents answers, yes, of course. And the normal upgrade or the standard upgrades are thousands of chips or cybernetic devices implanted in the body, everywhere. Tiny, no battery, connectivity available, active. And later in life, the persons that have been upgraded, well, assume that the body temperature increases over a long period, say a week. Do you know what that is? It might be pending heart attack. But fortunately, the implants will pick this up long before it becomes a problem, and it will send the information to the doctor, who will respond with some suitable action. Another use case is, what if you have these implants what if some of these implants pick up a signal that there's something weird with a part of the cells? Again, we're talking about cancer, and we can pick this up, and we can communicate this to the doctor, who will get back to you with a suitable course of action that you can take to prevent this long before it gets into being a problem. And if we look even further into the future, I think that this is going to be, this is not going to be a doctor receiving this. It's going to be an autonomous system where you just feed the information to some kind of supercomputer that just responds automatically. And it's that easy. So well-being, it's going to take a time. This is not around the corner. This is like maybe 50, maybe 100 years. But we're going to be there. Then we have something that I call seamless integration. So what if we have all these chips? We don't have batteries. We have connectivity. We have everything we need. So I'm going to go to the grocery store, and I'm going to pick up whatever I need. And then instead of going to the queue waiting for the cashier, I'm just going to exit. I'm just going to leave. Because I'm wearing everything that's needed, and the supermarket can pick up the information about me, who I am, my credit card, and they can just charge me. And this is going to be true for everything that we do in our daily life, like going to the movie, going here. You don't need the tags. You can just be here. So everything we do, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because I think that people want to have that daily communication with the cashier. I mean, it makes sense. So it's going to be a problem. I'm not sure if this is a good thing, but maybe we can spend the time doing something else with our friends online. Have you heard about neuralace? Anyone? This is an idea that comes from a specific person. His name is Elon Musk. I don't know if you heard about him. He started a few companies, and the thing about him is that when he says something, it usually ends up true. SolarCity, SpaceX, Tesla, just to mention a few of them. And his main concern when it comes to artificial intelligence is that it's going to be so good that it's going to make us humans inferior. And we're basically going to be house pets to the computers. And if you talk to other experts in the AI area, they're going to say that this is going to end in one out of two ways. We are going to be superhumans ourselves, or we're going to be extinct. There's no middle road. I mean, we can't stay the way we are. And he suggests a neural lace to solve the problem and make sure that we become the superhumans. And it's basically a mesh of implants around the brain that picks up all the signals from the brain, and it communicates an API to the outside world that you can just hook up to the AI. So we can communicate one-to-one with artificial intelligence in blink of an eye. So every information that the AI has will be available to us. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but he's working on it. And if you think about what we've seen so far with the kernel company, they're doing this, but with a very limited part of our brain. He just want to expand that to include the entire brain. I know it sounds easy, but it's going to be, it's going to be 50 or 100 years away. But we're moving there. My last prediction for the future is what I call the human internet. So if we connect everything that we've heard so far, so take the neural lace, take the seamless integration, and take everything else, we as human beings are going to be communicating with the artificial intelligence. But if we have published an API, what's stopping us from communicating with our friends directly? We don't need to speak. We don't need keyboards. We don't need screens. We don't need to talk. We don't need to see anything. We can just communicate one-to-one. And this is where it gets a bit scary. And to be honest, no pun intended, I'm having a very hard time wrapping my head around this. And again, this is far into the future, but I think we're getting there. And looking at the kernel, I think it's viable. We just have to figure out how it works and the signals going to and from our brain, and we're going to be there. And to end this, I want to say that when this happens, I hope to be very, very old, sitting in a home for elderly people in a rocking chair, drinking whiskey and smoking a pipe, not being part of this at all. That's my final conclusion. I've saved time for questions and for discussions. And if you want to tell me what you think about it, if you're going to get a chip implant, then do so. There is a mic over there. I will answer questions as good as I can. I really don't have anything to say about security and integrity. It really sucks. I have no security at all. So if I drink a lot of beer and pass out, You could write information to the chip, and then you could lock it. And there's no way for me to unlock it. So security is, it's not existing at all.
How do you think nanotechnology is going to impact implants?
So how do I think nanotechnology is going to impact? I think it's going to be competing technology. So I think they can solve the same problems that we do. So we have to work in parallel or hand in hand. So they're not really going to compete. They're just going to compete for solving the problems. More questions? Yes?
Do you think that the upgrades of humans will break the normal evolution of humans?
In the end, it has to. Because if we want to live forever or for a very long time, we have to do something. So yes, it's going to change us. But like anything else with anything included, anything part of the evolution, it's going to take time. So we are going to be far away from the evolution, and we're not going to be able to adapt in a very long time, and that's going to be a huge problem. Because evolution is always, it's like the master branch. It's what decides where we're going to go, and we're just augmenting their lives. More questions?
How will it work with future hardware upgrades and new communication technologies when you already have a chip implant?
So how will the upgrades work in the future? And that's an easy question. I just have to remove it and insert a new one. And that's a problem. But that's where we are. So if I want to upgrade this, I have to remove it and I have to insert a new one. But I hope that in the future, but looking at the phones we have today, it's the same problem. In a few years, we don't get upgrades anymore because it's too old. And hopefully this will last for a longer period of time. But I think in 10 years' time, we have to remove it. We have to solve the problem in some way, having some kind of generic device that always works. But it's a tough problem. More questions? Huh? Private life issues. Yes, plenty of them.
How are you going to make your government not spying on you on chips, on biohacking devices?
So how will we make sure that the government won't spy on us? Good question. And that's one of the things we have to solve before we take the next step into the future. So first privacy, integrity, and security, and then we can deploy it to everyone. So it has to be that way. But I don't have a good question. But in a way, it's the same problem that we're facing today with the security. Our mobile phones. We transmit every bit of data of our lives to companies today. And we're probably going to do the same in the future. We just have to make sure that we have some kind of control of it. I mean, some kind of control. So we're gonna have the same problem. We just to make sure that we do it, in the right. We do the security first. Yes.
Do you plan, talking about Git, do you plan to rebase to some patches in human evolution, like version 0.9.1?
But I'm thinking if we get aliens here, that would be a good use case. I mean, some kind of merging them. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you show me the branch and I merge. Yes.
You said you had some disagreement with your wife about getting the implant.
Yeah.
What convinced her?
Convinced?
Well,
It was a phone call.
but you did it anyway, or did you have it?
No, I told her about the consequences. I told her about the container. It's glass. It's biosafe. It doesn't contain nickel or anything else. And I said that I read up on it, and she said, I support you in this, just as long as you know that it's safe. So, and I think that makes sense. She knows that. Again, I've done some pretty stupid mistakes, but she knows that in the end I do it because I'm interested, and I'm going to work with it in the future. So I think that reading up on the subject is the best way to convince someone. So how many of you would do a chip implant? 1, 2. Okay, plenty of you. Thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to come down and scan my chip, or you can even touch it if you like, very softly. Thank you so much.